Our database is a two-level hierarchy. We have businesses, and those are the business owners. So in many cases, those may be out-of-state people, companies, Safeway Corp, Kroger Corp, Chevron Corporation, what have you, that own facilities that operate within your county boundaries. So let's take a look at a short example of those. So we have here Chevron Corp, Safeway, the Kroger Company, they're in Cincinnati, Ohio. So Kroger Company is going to order some, Food for Less, or Safeway is going to own some Safeway stores. But one of the key things about keeping this data clean and making it easy to maintain is the mailing address information. And in many cases, a lot of your locations have a common mailing address for invoicing. Let me take an example here. I may have a Safeway store that's, at 123 Main Street. That store may have a mailing address that's a PO box in Sacramento somewhere. But the invoices don't go to either of those addresses. They go to Safeway Corp in Dallas or something. Okay, so we have three different sets of address information. We have a physical and mailing address for the store itself, and then we have a mailing address for the corporate location or wherever the bills need to be sent to. And that last one, wherever the bills need to be sent to, we want to, if it changes, we don't want you to have to remember to go into 7 different stores and change it in all 7 places. And even more importantly than that, we don't want you to change it in 7 places because you'll spell it differently. You'll put a different number of spaces in between the street. You'll put a comma or you won't. And what that ends up doing is it ends up confusing the system, so it generates different packages of invoices where it should generate one package of invoices for that to be stuffed into one envelope. Okay, so we're very careful. We want to have as clean as possible a set of mailing addresses for invoicing purposes, and those go on these business records. Now, with that said, the business record that we're talking about here is not always the corporate owner. In fact, there's quite a lot of businesses in California that use a billing service or a bill pay service. And you, instead of sending the invoice to the Safeway store or to the Safeway headquarters, you might send the invoice to J&J Bill Pay Company. And that may be true. Like Panda Express is a classic. There's a whole ton of Panda Express franchisees that use a bill pay service. And so the business owner of those Panda Express franchises is not Panda Express Inc. It's actually Owens Business Services. And so just be aware that when we talk about, I don't use the term owner, I use the term business. And it's really the business that takes care of the bills, because that's all we care about these business addresses for, is sending invoices to. Okay, enough said on that. What information do we collect about the businesses? So I'll just show you a few common things here. On all of these CalCATS screens, you're going to see lists of things like this. All of these lists are sortable by the column headers. So you click on a column header and it will change the sort order. And it's a 3-stage cycle. It sorts ascending, it sorts descending, and then it removes it from the sort order. So I can sort by any combination of, different fields. You'll also see these filters. That makes every list searchable. So if I just wanted to see addresses that have the word Ramon, if I can spell it, I can just type, show me a list with values that contains Ramon, and it will filter right on the screen with a little highlight telling you it's filtered. So I'm sure you're familiar with Excel. This is very much like Excel. We tried to copy a lot of Excel's functionality here. You will also see this pencil icon. Pencil means view or edit, depending on what privileges you have in the system. You'll see a trash can, which is delete, and then these other icons are different on every screen, and I'll talk about what they do. But let's click the pencil icon on Chevron Corporation. So for the company, we keep track of a few different things. We keep track of a physical address, but we don't really care about the physical address. We don't use the physical address of the businesses at this point. And we keep track of the mailing address. This is the one we really care about. And in my example data here, I don't have anything filled in here, but this is where in the data we've imported from your Dr. B's system, this is where we put the common mailing addresses, is in this mailing address set of fields here. And then, typical contact information, phone numbers, fax numbers, names and emails, and description, some county notes. So just information you keep that's, private to you. Doesn't show up on any invoices or any communications. One thing we will need to talk about is account numbering. Most counties use a combination of, or one or other of, an account number or a permit number. So we have various places in the system where we keep track of account numbers and permit numbers. Generally, we don't use the account number at the business level. We'll use the account number at the location level. So each Safeway store will have its own account number. So we'll talk about that when I pop in there and take a look at those. Okay, we also see here under locations, the number of locations that they have. So the Chevron business has 1 location, Safeway has 4, and the Kroger company has 3. If I want to drill down into the 4 locations that Safeway owns here, I'll use this map locator button. It's like the little locator pin that goes on a Google map. And that then will show me for Safeway, the 4 locations that are in the county that belong to that Safeway. And here we'll see these are individual Safeway stores. Now, the system requires every location to have a unique name. So if you've got a bunch of Safeways, we want you to put in the Safeway store number or some other unique identifier, because at some point you're going to see a list of these and you need to be able to differentiate them somehow. And having a store number or a city name or something in there is an easy way to keep them unique. You'll also see now that we have a default account numbering scheme. And we can use the default, or we can customize an account numbering scheme for you, whatever you prefer. But by default, we use a business sequence number. So number 1 is assigned to Safeway, and then each Safeway location gets a sequential number appended to it. Assuming we're not going to have more than 1,000 stores in a county, which I think would be, I don't know, maybe for Starbucks. Okay, so let's take a look at the pencil icon for a location. We track a little bit more information on locations than we do for the businesses. The first thing you'll see is we have a business ownership relationship. And here I do use the term owner, but again, this isn't necessarily the legal financial owner. It's the responsible person for paying the invoices is what it boils down to. But there are a lot of cases where a franchise will switch from one owner to another. Same store, same devices, same everything. If you want to keep the history of that location intact, you'll leave the location active and you'll just change owner to a different company. And we keep an audit record, and you can see the history of the ownership changes as time goes by. There are other cases where, like, let's say you have I can't believe it's yogurt, and it gets bought out by Froyo, right? In that case, you don't want to keep the whatever TCBY history with Froyo because they're unrelated. So any violations that may have happened in the past should be wiped out, in which case you'll create a new location just with the same address, and you'll deactivate the can't believe it's yogurt location. So maintaining this list of businesses and their locations, there's a little bit of tracking that goes on here that you should just be aware of the information that's associated with these locations. Is not just the invoicing and the transaction ledger, but it's also the inspection history. All right, unlike the business level, here we care about the physical address. This is what your inspectors are going to use to go drive it and find the location to do the inspection. We rarely use mailing addresses for the actual locations in the county, unless, for example, you are mailing out some information. Let's say you have some new requirements for computing scales, and you want to generate a list of all the locations that have computing scales and send them something in the mail. That's where you might use the location mailing address as opposed to the business mailing address, which again is where the invoices go. Then beyond that, we have a bunch of classification information. A lot of this is used for weights and measures inspection planning, but one that may become important to you is the business type. And a little later in the agenda, we'll be talking about how we generate device registration invoices. There is an automated batch process for generating them. You don't have to do them one by one, obviously. And there are certain kinds of businesses, like local producers or farmers markets, where you do not generate device registration invoices for them. They bring their devices to you to be sealed before they use them that year. And so having those classified in the business type schema here and identified as those business types let you easily filter them out from the annual device registration invoicing process. Okay, so that's kind of the first two levels of our basis information is what are the locations that operate in your county and who is responsible for paying the bills. Then the last component you need is at this Safeway, you need to know what they got. What kind of devices do they have? So the last icon here is a set of scales. That's for looking at devices. When I click on there, we'll see a listing of all the devices and inspection types that we get involved with at that location. So they got fuel pumps, truck LPG meters, a couple of different kinds of scale. They do price verification, or we do price verification inspections for them. They're a packer. They package produce at their store. And so we do package audits. And then they may be Weighmaster. That's more like junkyards and recycling centers. And if they got a gas station, then in addition to inspecting their pumps for measuring quantity, we also do a petroleum audit type of inspection. Now, out of this realm of all the different things we do, there's only certain things that matter to the invoicing process. The things that matter to the invoicing process are the measuring devices and weighing devices programs. Okay, so anything that's actually a physical device. And then potentially quantity control, price verification, and quantity control packers. I'm guessing right now that you do not invoice packers. There are some counties like Riverside County that actually have a county ordinance, and they invoice packaging houses for the package audits they do there. But I'm not sure if you have a price verification ordinance. Do you have a scanner ordinance, Chris?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yep.
So we will have identified all of your price verification locations, and we will, I assume, then be sending out device registration invoices or annual registration invoices for those price verification locations.
Correct.
Okay, so on this screen, the things that are really important from an invoicing perspective for devices, whether it's measuring or weighing devices, it's this number of devices and number of vehicles. And we'll talk in a minute about the configuration and how those numbers are used in the calculations, but those are the important factors here. So maintaining those as current counts is very important. And then for price verification, we generally split price verification up into 3 tiers. There's 1 to 3 scanners, 4 to 9 scanners, and 10+ scanners. So the actual number of devices is really not that important. What's more important is the classification. And as a store obtains and disposes of their point of sale systems, you can go in and you can change this number of devices. But at some point, if they switch to a different tier, you can also change this to a different tier. So if they go down to 9 devices, I also, in addition to changing number of devices to 9, I want to switch this down to PV 4 through 9. So that's the information to maintain at this level.